Light, floral and full of elegance. Lowland whiskies are often overlooked, but they're the perfect place to start your Scotch journey. I'll explain why and recommend a great one to try. Hey guys, I'm Nath Martyn, the Whiskey Scribe. I'm a whiskey enthusiast and I love all things whiskey. Now you'll often hear whiskey drinkers talk about the region that a whiskey comes from, as though it's somehow responsible for the flavours in the whiskey. So in this series, I'm going to take you through the 5 official whiskey regions of Scotland, a bit of the history, what flavours to expect from whiskies from this region, and also recommend some whiskies that are great examples of this flavour profile. Geographically, and this is what we used to use before Google Maps, the Lowland region occupies Scotland's southernmost parts, stretching from the Firth of Clyde in the west to the Firth of Tay in the east, bordered by the Highland Line to the north and England to the south. It's close to major cities like Edinburgh and Glasgow, which makes it really accessible for whiskey lovers wanting to visit distilleries in the region. It's home to farmland, rolling countryside, fertile hills and a relatively mild climate. Much of the area also has sedimentary rock with coal deposits, which gets important later. Now, although plenty of farming occurs in the region, that's not actually the most important part for the whiskey region's iconic flavour. Now, Lowland whiskies are renowned for being a more gentle whiskey, with light, sweet and floral undertones. The Lowlands are the most populated region of Scotland, and as a result they industrialised early. So many of the region's local distilleries during boom periods would produce as much volume as possible to make whiskey for blenders. And as a result, they would use the locally available coal, which was reasonably cheap, in order to dry out the barley as part of the whiskey making process. Now, coal burns quite cleanly and therefore doesn't impart anywhere near as much flavour on the grain as more traditional methods like peat. And don't worry, I'll get to peat for the smoke lovers when we're in the right regions. Also, while many Scottish distilleries usually only double distill their whiskey, in the Lowlands it was common practice to triple distill. This would produce a much cleaner, lighter whiskey that was much easier for blenders to work with, and as a result it became a real characteristic feature of that flavour profile. It's worth noting that many of the Lowland distilleries that were producing whiskey for blenders and triple distilling, they went bust in the 80s and 90s after a period of overproduction. And the only whiskey distillery in the Lowlands region that still triple distills all of their whiskey is Auchentoshan. But tradition has a tendency of hanging around, and that's why even though most distilleries in the Lowlands aren't triple distilling anymore, it's still quite characteristic for the Lowland distilleries to deliberately produce a whiskey that is lighter and easy drinking. So you can expect flavour notes like floral aromas like honeysuckle and orange blossom, sweeter flavours that come across like cream and vanilla and caramel, and spicy undertones of cinnamon and ginger, and light herbal or even grassy finishes. These gentle qualities make Lowland whiskies perfect for people who are being introduced to Scottish whisky for the first time, or even just those who like a really nice, easy drinking dram. While the Lowlands no longer boast the same number of distilleries as Speyside or the Highland region, they're still known for a number of really notable brands, including Auchentoshan, which I already mentioned is famous for triple distillation, as well as a smooth, nutty character. Glencairn, known as the Edinburgh malt, its whiskies are really light and grassy. Bladnoch, one of Scotland's oldest distilleries, producing fruity and floral whiskies, and the only Scottish distillery owned by an Australian. Lindores Abbey, producing delicate, well-balanced whiskies. And Rosebank, once known as the King of the Lowlands, which has been closed for decades but only recently reopened in 2024. There's other notable distilleries including Annandale, Daftmill, Lochley and Holyrood, and the region's also seeing quite a resurgence, with new distilleries like Edenmill, Kingsbarn and Glasgow Distillery adding modern flair. While the Lowland region has that traditional style, distilleries are always looking for ways to produce new and unique and different tasting whiskey. So not every whiskey from the Lowland region is going to taste iconically like a Lowland region whiskey. It's not always going to be light, sweet and floral. But if you want to experience that classic Lowland whiskey style, the whiskey I'd recommend would be Glencairn 12-year-old. So this whiskey it's an affordable, widely available whiskey. It's part of the distillery's core range, so it's not likely to be discontinued anytime soon. And the flavours you can expect from this fit that typical Lowland style. On the nose, you're going to get freshly cut grass, vanilla, lemon, and a little bit of cinnamon and malt. On the palate, it's medium bodied with stewed fruits, creamy vanilla and a touch of oak, and then herbal notes emerge on the finish, which leaves a grassy, lingering aftertaste. It's a classic example of a lowland whiskey, and it's a really good starting point for realistically anyone new to the region. So that's the lowland region in a nutshell. Do you have a favourite lowland whiskey, one that really encapsulates that typical style? If so, please let me know in the comments below. In the rest of this series, I'm going to cover things like the Highland regions, Speyside, Campbelltown, Islay, as well as a controversial area that's not considered an official whiskey region, but many people believe it should. So make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want to catch the rest of the videos in this series. But for now, enjoy what's in your glass, no matter where it's from, and slange.